Welcome to Broadway Corner with Ashley Ha, where you can hear your favorite performers talk about how they got started, their careers, and everything in between. Make sure to follow me on Instagram and Spotify at Broadway Corner with Ashley Ha, and on my main Broadway account at Broadway_Corner on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoy. Hi everyone, welcome back to Broadway Corner with Ashley Ha. I'm so happy you're here. Today we're getting right back into it, doing 2 podcasts in a week. And we're back at BoCo in the Opera Studio with one of my favorite teachers I've ever had. Ever, truly. You've seen him on Broadway and Come From Away, and you heard his voice on the Lemme Fix It podcast. It's the one and only DeLon Grant.
Hello, hello.
How you doing, DeLon?
I'm good. I'm bummed about the snow outside, but
it's beautiful. But obviously, if you're outside, it's not quite as beautiful.
Right.
But yeah, we're gonna talk about anything and everything today. So I'm really excited. So I'll just give you a little bit of background about DeLon. So DeLon is an actor, singer, writer, and photographer. He spent 5 years performing on Broadway in the Tony Award-nominated hit musical Come From Away as Bob, and 3 years touring domestically and internationally as Berry Belson in the Tony Award-winning musical Jersey Boys. He also co-hosts the podcast Lemme Fix It. It's described as a trip down memory lane followed by a hilarious rebranding session. Each episode explores their favorite celebrities, shows, catchphrases, brands, and movies of yesteryear, and then imagines what it would take to repackage them for relevance today. A lot in there, but obviously really fun. And DeLon holds a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Acting from the University of Michigan and a Master's in Music with a concentration in musical theater performance from Boston Conservatory. And so we're back. And DeLon joined BoCo this year as an assistant professor of theater, teaching acting through song technique and audition skills to 2nd and 4th year students, me being one of them. And DeLon has a real passion for fostering supportive spaces that promote new ideas and diversity in storytelling. And in addition to stage work, DeLon's also a photographer specializing in headshots and lifestyle portraits. So that was a lot.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
But, so much to talk about. I think you were just one of the most inspirational people I've met in a while. And just getting to meet you and get to know you and work with you, obviously, throughout this semester has been so much fun. And just a real, it's been really fun to just explore the solo part of it and what it is to get back into that work, because we didn't do any of that last year. So it's really fun to just get to kind of chat. But before we get into, the teaching and the Broadway of it all, let's talk about you. Let's talk about your background, where you grew up, maybe where you went to school, how you discovered theater. How did DeLon become DeLon?
Yeah, so I grew up in northern Minnesota, which is why I don't enjoy the snow. Because it's, we joke in Minnesota, from late October, early November to April, it's winter, because it can potentially snow through any of that time. So yeah, I grew up in Minnesota, and I call myself a bit of a misguided youth. I'm black, and I grew up in a very white town. I grew up poor. I'm queer in a straight world. So all of my identities were kind of contrary to my contemporaries, my fellow students. I had, obviously students of color and stuff there. So I just didn't like school. I was good at school, smart kid. I just didn't enjoy it, right? There was no reason to go to the building, other than I was supposed to, I was told to. But then I discovered theater and choir and music, and I fell in love, partially because there was this weird group of kids that met in the theater, in the auditorium every day to pretend to be other people. I had a crush on a girl because I thought I was straight, and she auditioned, and I got in, and she didn't.
Hey, it was meant to be.
You're right, totally, kismet. But there's always a teacher, right? There's always a teacher. The reason that I enjoy teaching so much is because I had an amazing theater teacher who was a professional actress in her own right for 13 years, and just had a passion for it. There are a lot of us in my era of my high school who went on to study theater because of her, because of her love for it and her attention to us. It was the first time I really had an adult that was pouring into me that wasn't a family member, and seeing me in a different way. So all of a sudden my grades changed class president, student council president,
Oh, wow.
homecoming king. All of this stuff happened because I was seen and I felt like I found a place. I didn't know that you could study it until my theater teacher was like, you should go to this summer program at Northwestern University between junior year and senior year of high school. And I went the Cherubs program. I went and did that, and that changed my whole life. I was like, oh, I have to do this. I want to study it like this.
Yeah.
And then I auditioned for, I didn't have to do what you all do. You all have to like apply to like 20 schools now and pre-screen and all that kind of stuff. I applied to 3 schools.
Oh my God, the person I talked to 2 days ago, he applied to 4. He also went to Michigan.
Oh really?
For musical theater, but
crazy.
I was like 4 schools and the one you got into was Michigan. Like that's kind of impressive on another level.
Yeah.
So 3 schools.
I will, not to discredit my talent or this other person's talent, but there were just less of people doing it then. Too, right? There's a lot more people doing it, which I think is a good sign for art and a good sign for stories and the industry and stuff like that.
That makes it kind of crazy. I only auditioned for maybe like 14, which is on the lower side now.
But
I'm
still,
like, still
double digit is a lot of schools.
It's a lot, and that whole process, that's a whole other conversation
Right.
for another day. And
right.
You're in the process of watching auditions and pre-screens, which must be interesting to be on the other side of that and getting to like really see what goes into that.
Yes.
That's also another conversation, but I love that you did a program and it kind of set your mind on like what was possible.
Yes.
Because I think that's like the important thing is like knowing that it's possible for yourself.
Seeing that it's possible.
Yeah, like
totally.
being able to know that that's even an option in this world is something else. And like that's something I think I experienced as well doing like a summer program like you and just being like, oh, okay, I can do this conservatory thing. Like, maybe, let's do 5 days a week, like, 10 till 5 of like doing whatever and everything and anything and just having all your time dedicated to one thing, which is kind of crazy. I don't remember how intensive the Michigan program is, but it's just like when you're dedicating so much time to something, it'll obviously stick for a while.
The dedication of it all, and the concentration therein, right? Like the idea that college is intended for us to focus, conservatory even more so, right? But the idea that we like collectively all have one mind and are collectively all working towards something is what I really enjoyed about it too. Community in the focus, I think.
And then since you went to an acting program, how did you, I guess, cultivate the musical theater side of you? So obviously, I think you've stated that you're an actor first, kind of?
I think of myself as an actor who sings.
Actor first, and an actor who sings, obviously, very well, and performs very well. I've obviously seen you in a couple shows now, which is amazing. But how did you also cultivate that side? Is it kind of like what we have here, where as a person who is like a contemporary theater, which is kind of our more so acting program, and they're able to take like dance classes and things like that with us, like is that kind of how it is at Michigan as well, or is that just something else that you completely discovered for yourself?
I was really kind of caught off guard when I got to Michigan because I'm northern Minnesota, a very small theater program, and I got involved in theater late. I started doing it when I was 14, which is like most kids, right?
I also did it at 14, like started in high school.
And most kids started when they're like, 5, and like whatever. So like I was just like behind the 8 ball a lot. And so when I got to Michigan and I looked at like the roster of like classes, I was like, where are the singing and acting classes? Because theater was just theater. You did musicals and plays. To this day, I still don't understand why they're completely separate. But at Michigan, they're very separate.
Overlap.
There's significant overlap.
Interesting.
And there should be overlap.
So maybe a little more.
Darren Criss is he was a year younger than me at Michigan.
And I just saw him in Maybe Happy Ending.
There you go, right? And he was in the theater program with me, but he does a lot of musicals, Glee and all, you know what I mean? So I just think there's a lot of overlap, myself included. But so I'm also somebody who like, when you tell me like I can't do something, or if I have like an inkling that I might want to do something and I can't, I'm gonna work toward doing that. So on top of my theater classes, I took dance classes, I took voice lessons, I took singing group classes. I took one musical theater classes that class that was part of the Conservatory musical theater program in Michigan. But other than that, it was kind of like my own study.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And I always wanted to get a master's degree because my theater teacher from high school really drilled in, like, if you want to do this, you should be able to teach it. And teaching it, as a sidebar, teaching it makes me so much of a better actor.
Yeah.
Because you're able to think about it differently and figure out how to use how to describe it and get someone else to do it. But yeah, I wanted to go to grad school, and when I was a year out from undergrad, I moved to New York for about 6 months with $3,000 in my pocket, and I thought I was like gonna do it.
Do the
most
thing.
money I ever made in my life on my own, and gone. All of that money was, and I was a struggling actor, and I was like, oh, this is not what I thought it was. So I applied to grad school, and I wanted to apply to, I already had an acting degree, so I wanted to diversify my skill set and be able to do the thing that I think most of us are going to get cast for in New York and Broadway now anyway, because if it's a play, generally, they want a star.
Yeah,
You know?
and they're a lot smaller in production,
exactly.
it seems like. For some.
Exactly.
Obviously not Harry Potter, but...
Right, Harry Potter, or what is that one, the last Tom Stoppard play that was just on Broadway? Big cast, like 24 cast members. I forget the name of it. It'll come to me. But yeah, so I one of the only schools at that time, this was like 2006, 7, that had a master's in musical theater was the Boston Conservatory.
Really? Okay.
And I only applied to the Boston Conservatory, and I thought if I didn't get in, I wasn't going to go. And I got in, and then the rest is kind of history. So, yeah.
Man, I think it's just... like obviously the work that you put into, but also just like the fact that you applied to one school and that was the one, and then you got in is incredible. I think I'd be like, oh my God, like what is happening?
What was I thinking? You know what I mean? But I guess it's a testament to the focus of it, you know?
No, I mean, you obviously put in the work and had the dedication in order to, get there. And so it's like, there's nothing that's discounting that at all. It's just like, wow.
I mean, when I'm even saying it now and reflecting back, I'm like, you put all your eggs in this basket. And it's bared fruit. Boar fruit? Bared fruit.
Bared fruit. I don't know. Whatever. It's really fun. But like, what about performing do you think like sparked the joy? Was it the people, or was it being on stage and being able to be seen by other people? And what was it that really made you want to pursue it as a career once you knew it was possible?
That's a really good question. I mean, I think if I could speak for most of us, I just liked it, right? I felt good.
Yeah.
I felt good doing it, and the community is what really made it stick, right? Having friends, having a support system, that is the thing that I think we all relish as well. But for me, I like rehearsal more than performance, because that's when you start bonding. That's when the relationships are built, I think what kept me going is I actually took this on-camera class in New York with this woman, Marcy Phillips, and she wrote a book. And in the preface of the introduction of the book, she says, "Well, we all started acting and continued acting because we wanted somebody to love us, right?" And I think that's part of it for sure. There's and I mean that in a more kind of figurative sense, that when someone laughs at a joke you tell, when someone claps for you, when you there's immediate validation in theater. I do a thing, you clap. I do a thing, you laugh. And so I think I say this a lot, being drunk in that a little bit kept me going. There's like a need for that validation and affirmation. But I also fell in love with the skill of it. There's something, the empathy that you have to have, as you've heard me say ad nauseum in class, the empathy bubble, I call it. It's really, theater expands it, I think.
Yeah,
acting expands it. And human psychology, I understand who I am, and I think who we are more, because you have to dive into different characters and why a character is and what a character wants. And that helps you, just helps me understand a little bit more why I do things and why a human might want certain things.
Yeah, I mean, we did a whole unit on I Want songs.
Right.
Like, we all want something in the world, and then to figure out kind of why people do the things they do is on a whole other level. I think people just take theater as like singing, dancing, fun, okay, that's it. But it's like, it's a lot more nuanced than that, definitely. And when you actually dive into that and gain the empathy that you do gain when you're acting and embodying somebody else, it's or whether you put yourself onto that character, that's another thing. But whether when you're just being someone who's not completely yourself, it's you get to just put yourself somewhere else and just experience maybe what it's like to be there. And then if it happens to come up in your real life, you're like, wait, it's aligning again.
And I would add too, like there's something about being able to experience an emotion, an experience, or the context of something that you wouldn't in your normal life as the way you actually function. But if you step into Elphaba is I just saw Wicked, so that just popped into my head.
I saw it this week too.
But if you step into an Elphaba, you may know what it is to feel powerful in that sense, or to feel lonely, or to feel ostracized when you may not have that in your everyday life, but you're able to experience that fulsomely in that character.
Yeah, and again, it is make believe sometimes.
That part.
It's acting,
Totally.
And so you get to explore different things through that, and then maybe in turn just expand who you are as a person.
Yes,
and
actually.
Discover what sticks, I guess, and really who you get to be,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is the most important part. And especially since we're in college and you're figuring out all those things, it's like, it almost feels like we get kind of that gift of being able to explore so many parts of ourselves instead of just shutting them away.
Ashley, I want you to say that to every student here.
Yeah.
Because it's like you're elbowing to create more room for who you are, to see more of who you are, right?
Yeah.
And that's why I say in class all the time, sorry, this is an insular conversation, but I say it all the time, allow yourself to fail. Because if you want to get it right, we all want to get it right.
Yeah.
But if you want to get it right every time and that's your only focus, then you have less of an ability to learn, or less of an ability to see how you bounce back.
Yeah.
Right? And so allowing yourself to continue to stretch here is a huge, if not the point.
Yeah, no, and I think what you've done, at least in our class this semester, having us all do very different things from unit to unit. I feel like I didn't do the same thing twice, which was so fun, scary, weird, and I tried my best to do whatever you threw at me, and just that ability to not corner yourself in a type or just what you do best. It's like, let's do something else so that you just get it out there and see what it's like to do that, because we have in our heads what maybe we like to do, what's comfortable for us, and then obviously we did a risk unit, how to get out of that and just really learn how to be anybody in that sense of just. As actors, I think sometimes we get stuck in the one person thing where it's like, no, you need to be able to embody anyone at any point, whether you relate to them or not. And I think I experienced that a lot with the song Lying There, where I was like, I can't relate to this at all. And I actually, because you had a lot of other people, putting their own experiences onto that. And we personally, we didn't talk about that with my song. And so I made the decision that I'm not doing that for myself. I'm I'm not going to apply this to my own life because it doesn't work. And anything that I was going to, relate it to was never going to be deep enough than what it is. So I'm like, let me just play it as it is and figure that out. I'm like, and then, it worked pretty well.
Pretty well. Actually, it was some of the best work in class. I think everyone in the class would say that. It was really, really beautiful work.
But I think the thing that taught me was that we don't need to. It doesn't need to be comfortable. It needs to be something that's uncomfortable always, and just exploring that to the fullest part is so beautiful.
Yeah.
And really nice to just see everyone else in the class as well do it, and just get to experience what it's like to be other people.
Yes.
And live life, but in a fully and new way. And that was a lot for one question. My goodness.
No, listen, I'm almost a verbose, so interrupt me at some point because I will just keep talking.
Yeah, I think there's just so much that I've had to think about this semester that's been so cool, and I appreciate having this class so much because I missed it from last year, because in the summer program that was my favorite class, and then not having that, I was like, where is it? When do we get to be solo and do this thing again? And then now it's everyone just feels so fulfilled, which is really cool.
That makes me so happy.
And let's talk a little bit about Come From Away, because that is a show that you did for 5 years, which is a long time, obviously, to do anything. Like, you know, I've done like a month run of a show, and I'm like, you know, it gets repetitive and stuff like that. And especially for Come From Away, that's like such a nuanced and deep show. And it was your Broadway debut. Yeah. So how did it feel to make your Broadway debut?
Oh man, it's like you imagine, right? Everything, everywhere, all at once.
Love that movie.
Such a good movie. Yeah, you know what? I described the experience of discovering or not getting the show as if I tripped over something. Meaning, like, at some point I just wanted to work. You know, I just wanted to work as an actor, and I was living here in Boston, if I could just backtrack on my timeline, after graduating from BoCo, and I lived here for 3 years at theater here. I was an arts administrator, and I was just like, well, what am I doing? Do I want to be an arts administrator because I had built up to being like a manager of this program? Or do I want to be a full-time actor? And I just gave it to the universe, and it worked out. Got back to New York, Jersey Boys happened, Come From Away happened right after that. And so all of my whole goal was just like, where's the next job? Where's the next show? Where's the next play? And so when it happened, and you just, half of our job, not half, most of our job at some point is just auditioning. I have an audition to record today, right? It's just auditioning. And so you kind of forget, or I forgot. And then when it happened, I was like, wait, what? What do you mean? Oh my God, crazy.
You're like, wait, I don't have to do an audition again for at least a little bit?
You know, so that was really cool. It really didn't sink in until my opening night, which was, I think it was a Friday.
How far into the run did you join the cast? Because I mean, that show was in there for a while.
Yeah. So they opened officially, I believe it was in March of 2017.
Okay.
That could be a little bit wrong in the timeline, but I joined July. And my first, that's when I started rehearsing, and my first performance was the day before my birthday, actually.
Oh my God.
August 4th, 2017.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a 2-show day. It was a Saturday because we had 2 shows that day. And it was everything. What was amazing about Come From Away is that, you know, we always say, like, you can't be a jerk and tell that story.
You can't.
Because it's about kindness, generosity, and the other, you know? And I didn't know any of these people, so not one of them. So I'm doing the show. I've rehearsed it by myself pretty much. We did a put in the day before, and then I'm on, right? And I do this show, and after like the playoff, when we come off stage, all of these people rush and just hug me. I could burst into tears. And I just cried like a baby, and I was like, oh my God, I just did it. I did it. It was so cathartic. I have goosebumps. It was so cathartic and so beautiful. And you know, you're friends with a lot of people that you do shows with, and you know, or you carry like 1 or 2 people. But like we all still have a group chat. We were texting yesterday. James Soul, who you know, just got married, and so we're all texting about James getting married. So we're really, really tight. We're really tight and love each other, and I think that's a part of the story and the Canadianness of it, because you know, Canadians are kind of amazing. But.
Yes, no, I remember seeing the show. I saw the first national tour of Come From Away. That was the first time I saw it, and I saw it twice on Broadway. So I probably saw you both times since you were there for so long. And just like the feeling you get when you leave, it's just like, oh, it's so fun. It's so cool. And I saw it when I was pretty young too, so I was like, I don't think I fully understood the gravity of the story and the full situation until maybe years later. But it's like anyone who sees it, it's just like a feel good, you know, it's like a gut wrenching feel good that you get from that show, and to get to have that community with people. I can only imagine what it's like. I mean, to have the kindness of everybody and just have that story carry you through 5 years of doing it. And like, what was something about Broadway that was maybe like unexpected, I guess? Like maybe something that you just didn't realize until you got there, like, or something that you had in mind of what it was like, and then maybe it got reversed on you or something.
Interesting. That's a good question. I'll pull that community thread again. Not only do we have community, I think, in the show and Come From Away in our little bubble, but I realized like it might sound so dumb saying it, but I had never been part of the community. So the Broadway community is vast. And I felt a part of it, and I still feel a part of it. The idea that like I've been in one show, I was in the national tour of Jersey Boys, which is technically a Broadway show too, but it's a Broadway national tour, right? So Broadway was one show for me, Come From Away, and I'm a part of that. Having that is cachet, it's currency, it's significant,
yes,
you know, and
extremely.
You know, and I don't mean to downplay my thought about it, but I didn't realize that how much it would mean for my career and how much it would mean moving forward, I think, outside of the community itself. But also, like, you know, one of the things that I love about Broadway shows is when there's a new Broadway show that opens, you probably know this, when there's a new Broadway show that opens, every other Broadway show creates like a little flyer, and of our show. So Come From Away would send, I'm thinking, Here Lies Love, because I know you saw that a bunch of times. Here Lies Love, we'd send them like a little Come From Away on a 8 by 8.5 by 11, and just sign it Happy Opening. And then that show just posts it all the way up their stairwell. That's small gesture, but it's like welcoming you to the community. We can't wait to see your show. You know, it's beautiful.
No, I love seeing those pictures of those, and I'm like, that's so cool that it's there for everyone, because everyone, you know, is supporting a new show. You never know how long they're going to be there, what's going to happen to it, or anything, but it's like in that moment, you know, they're special and it's their day. So just kind of let it all go and you know, debut on Broadway finally. I know, and then they have like the Gypsy Rose ceremony, like the robe ceremony. I know you didn't get to experience that, but I'm like, I always think about those like traditions that always happens, where it's like, it's so cool that Broadway does so many of those things that just carry on for years and years, and it's so special. Especially to like honor an ensemble member, or it is so cool. And like, it's
so beautiful. It's really beautiful.
Yeah, no, it's like Broadway. It's a crazy place, but
it's
a crazy place, but it's an incredible place, and I think that's obviously why all of us love even if you're not, obviously I'm not in the community directly yet. You know, hopefully sometime soon after undergrad, but it's like even not being in that, like I feel the love from other people that I get to meet at a stage door, anything like that. I mean, one of my classmates, Jack Mintz, got to meet you at the stage door. I was like, that's crazy. I don't even know like how I didn't meet you, but maybe because I was saying hi to James, maybe I was like distracted. But, or if you weren't signing that day. But it's like the things you get to see and the people you get to meet. It's like, I think stage doors have gotten a little crazy now, but I appreciate the times when you're able to have those human connections and just really, you know, talk about normal things, or just how much a show touched you. And it's just a beautiful thing that Broadway can do that for so many people, and that's why people keep going back. Back to it all the time, and just love it so much. And you know, I wish Come From Away was still open.
Oh man, you and me both.
I like that was such a staple, because the first time I went to New York it was there already, and then like it was there for a lot of my other visits that I went, and then finally I was like, oh my god, wait, it's not there anymore. It was like that and Dear Evan Hansen.
Oh yes, we were across the street from one another.
I would always pass by and I'm like, oh, they're always going to be there, they're always going to hang out, like it's going to be there forever. And then it didn't someday, and I was like, no, like that's crazy.
There'll be a revival. I'm claiming a revival.
Hopefully, even if it's just like the same production. I'm like, I don't think it needs to be that revised. So, like, I think it's just perfect the way it is. But how did you keep 8 shows a week fresh? As someone who did it for 5 years, and you did Jersey Boys for a couple years as well, how do you do that? Like, because that's rough. Like, having to do the same thing and not go into autopilot.
First, giving everyone grace who does 8 shows a week. You're human. You're absolutely human, right? And so there will be times where you do go on autopilot because your day before you got to the theater was hectic or whatever, or you have kids or a partner. You're three-dimensional, you know? And so what always helped for me was that Come From Away, there's a lot of direct address. So we're talking directly to the audience recounting the story. There's scene work, but there's a lot of direct address. So we often said that the audience was our 13th cast member. And I had a couple of monologues that were just me talking to the audience. So they keep us fresh or kept us fresh.
Yeah.
I think they always do, but and come from a way like, especially with one of my monologues, they would let me know if it wasn't funny. they let you know. Sometimes they're like really quiet, and you're like, God, they're so quiet, and you just realize they're just listening.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the show, they erupt like everyone else would erupt. You know?
Yeah, and the show's a little like surprisingly funny.
Yes.
Like a lot.
Yeah.
And Bob has a lot of funny stuff. Like
Yeah.
I remember seeing it the first time, like the whole thing, like I'm not worried about my wallet.
Totally.
I'm not worried about getting shot, but I'm worried about how much Irish whiskey I'm drinking. Like that stuff sticks with you after a while and you're like, wait, that's hilarious. But it's like in the midst of all of the, you know, heartbreak and just sadness, it's like there's so much joy in it.
Yeah, and like, I mean, that's it, to get into the rabbit hole of Newfoundland and Newfoundlanders.
Yeah.
That's in the DNA of the show, not only because it happens in Newfoundland, but that's who they are, right? Every time, we often joke, like every time you would want to talk about something heavy, they would make a joke, right? To like, and I think we all do that as humans.
Yeah, defense mechanisms.
Exactly.
Yeah.
To swat away vulnerability. But also, like, I think when what's the phrase? It's so sad you can't help but laugh, or like you laugh to keep from crying, right?
Yes.
When you have something that is that grave or that heavy, levity is a necessity just for your psyche and your heart.
Yes.
You know? So it is surprisingly funny. But I think one of the things that Irene Sankoff and David Hine, who are the writers and partners who did in the show, was that they put a bunch of jokes, so you're laughing. And when you're laughing, I think laughing is very close to crying.
Yeah.
You're open, and then they would hit you with something really serious.
Yeah.
And it would just sink in differently because you're open. You know, you're I don't know another way to describe open, but
just like vulnerable and
vulnerable.
Like, in a different way.
Yeah, and so
not like closed off, like
Yeah,
you know,
yes.
sitting in a Broadway theater, it's like it's
Yeah.
cold or whatever. It's like you're open to, you know, receiving what the actors are putting out.
You're disarmed. I would say you're disarmed.
Yeah, that's
because
a good one.
the laughing gets you on one track, and you think, oh, this is funny. Wow. Right?
Yeah. No, I think that show is just like immaculate, like beautiful and immaculate and perfect. And you know, someday down the line, hopefully I can be a part of it, because it's just I love listening to it and just the inspiration that it brings to so many people. I mean, and there's been productions everywhere.
Oh my God!
Like,
yes.
I'm
Spain.
so surprised. Yeah.
My friend Astrid Van Weeren, who was in the company, she
right.
did Beulah. She
Yeah.
just went to see the production in Spain. This Argentinian company
Oh my
did
goodness.
it, and they took their production to Spain. And I was like, oh man, I so wish that I could have seen it.
I know, and it's surprising, especially because it is kind of more of a American-ish, Canadian-ish story, I guess you could say. Like, it's like bringing Hamilton to London. Like,
Sure.
that's not something that is widely talked about in other countries, because it was something that happened to America mostly, that obviously had real world effects, but
Right.
just something that is very emphasized in America, where it's like, but people still connect with it even in different places. Like,
the human themes.
yeah,
You know?
no, it's just like, it's a human story, and it's obviously original and amazing, and not based on, you know, obviously based on real world events,
Sure.
but not like a movie or something.
But yes.
And what was it like doing the pro shot? Because you guys got to come back in the middle and do it.
Yeah.
And there was no audience? Or was there at least for one of the shoots?
For one performance, we had an audience.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was trying to remember. I was like, because I remember when it came out, I watched it, of course,
Yeah.
with my dad and stuff, and you know, got to finally relive what it was like to see the show. But what was it like getting to go back and film something? Because they did that with like maybe a couple shows during the pandemic. Maybe
Yeah,
like Diana. And like
Hamilton
that
was the first one, I think. Then Diana.
Yes, and like the release of those pro shots was so cool, because we didn't have theater at the time. And so what was it like getting to go back into the theater, being like after a little while away, and then getting to, you know, kind of lay the like I guess not quite finite, but like pretty finite version of what the show would be for anyone who wanted to see it, because that's like the pro shot.
Yeah.
Now.
It's so crazy. It's so crazy. Yeah, it's for posterity. You know, that's really kind of nuts to me. But I think we all kind of sat, if I could speak for everyone, we kind of sat in the awe of that, because we all grew up watching, you know, I don't know, Mary Poppins and whatever movie musical were available to us. So the idea that we're going to be part of that legacy, that we are a part of that legacy, is really amazing. It's really, really, I'm in awe of that and very grateful and thankful. So I say that I was a part of it for 5 years, and I include the 18 months that we were shut down, because we not only were still a part of the production, and it was still technically open despite Broadway being shut down, but we also shot the pro shot in that time. The really trippy part was that because COVID was still happening, we really didn't have vaccines at that point. Did we have vaccines at that point? I don't know if we did.
I can't remember.
I don't remember if we did. But to do it, what we had to do was we bought out a part of a hotel in Midtown Manhattan, and we got to the theater, we got to the hotel, and we had to quarantine for 72 hours. So we could not leave. We had to take a COVID test every day. Food was brought to us. And then after that, we could only convene like in outdoor spaces, and we had to be chaperoned to and from the theater. So that was the trippy part, right?
Yeah, that
and
must
also,
be rough.
Oh God.
So
and also seeing
interesting.
Midtown Times Square, that desolate was really dystopian. That was really kind of crazy. But shooting it was kind of awesome. We rehearsed in the hotel, and then we actually shooting it, seeing like the dolly cranes of cameras and all that stuff was awesome. The hard part was not having an audience for the most part, because a lot of our the tempo is about the laughs.
Yeah, we talked about that you get so much from them.
Totally, you know. So we would have to like leave room for laughs, but we did have an audience, and I was going to say, correct me if I'm wrong, you weren't there. But
I wish I was there.
If I'm remembering correctly, I think we did 2 runs that day. So I think we did like 6 runs total.
Okay.
So that they could get different angles and things
and
like that.
close-ups and stuff.
Yeah, and I think we did like, I forget how many days we shot, but we had an audience one day, and I think we did 2 runs for them, if I'm correct, but I can't remember exactly.
Yeah,
but
but it's so cool that now, I mean, you can rewatch it whenever
I
can
watched
rewatch
it.
You haven't?
Well, you said before we got on mic you don't like listening to yourself. I can't stand watching myself. I do, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But that
no,
one,
I understand, it's rough, but I'm like, you will someday, and it'll be amazing, because I love watching it.
I have watched it once. But,
okay.
But I also, like, right now, I'm such an emotion, as you know, I cry in class all the time. I'm such an emotional man that I'll probably like fall into a puddle watching it too.
No, I mean, I can only imagine, like, with all the, experiences that you had with that show, it's like, it carries a lot of weight. So, you'll have your time someday to really just sit in the emotion and reminisce on such a beautiful time. And what do you think is the most meaningful part of being a part of Come From Away?
Oh man, God, so many. What is the most meaningful part of being a part of Come From Away? I'd say it's twofold. It made me a kinder soul. It made me a kinder, more gentle person. And I think that's a part of the people, because the relationships I have with these people, and individually too, right? Collectively, but individually. Those relationships aren't going to go away. I hope they never go away. But that is such a part of the DNA of that story, and I think part of the DNA of being human. And so I take those things away. I think that was the most important thing, is the people, the relationships, and that comes down to being kind and generous, and able to love people. Gosh, as I say all this, I'm seeing everyone's head. I'm a very visual person, so I'm seeing them individually in my head and my relationships I have with them. So it is about the people. Yeah.
Were you one of the first replacements for the show?
I was the first replacement.
You were the first replacement.
Yeah.
Okay, I was wondering about that, because it's like when you join an original Broadway cast, obviously they've had quite a bit of time to really get used to all of that, and for the community in the show to be so open as well.
Yeah, they've been together for 4 years.
Yeah, and they've done all the other productions as well, and for that to just be extended to you
Yeah.
is so beautiful, and a testament to just who the people in the show are. And for them to welcome you fully open arms is so cool.
Wholeheartedly embraced me. It was really amazing.
No, it's so fun to hear about, and to hear about like your first Broadway experience being that.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, I won.
Not everybody gets that.
Yep.
And there's been some craziness, and you know, not every Broadway experience is a perfect one, and you know, not saying that yours was perfect, but I think it's pretty darn close maybe to what the best could be in terms of that.
I'd argue the same.
And just, you know, as a student, and I'm sure everyone else here is also thinking the same thing, like we all just hope for stuff like that. We all want community. We all want to be seen and loved by other people. I mean, again, we talked about this already. That's why you join the theater a lot of times. And for that to just be at the fullest point at Broadway level, it's just something so cool to hear. And the fact that I've heard a lot of people say like Broadway is just like glorified community theater. Like that's just what it is.
I totally, absolutely.
Yeah. No, it's like it's the same thing. We're all just doing a show. It just happens to have a lot more stakes and a lot more money.
Yes.
But it's the same thing pretty much that, you know, everyone's doing all over the world.
I'm gonna steal that and say that because it's so
it's
true.
not mine. I don't know who
true.
said that, but you know, it's Broadway. That's what
mine
Broadway
now.
is. No, I think, you know, it's just a saying everyone likes to talk about, but it's like Broadway, you know, it has its moments, and there's times where you feel loved by it or maybe not, and you know, I have a very complicated relationship, I think, with the world in general, but it's like when you hear things like that, it's good to know, and a good reminder of like all the goodness that is in this industry that is so rough for all of us. But it also does so much for all of us. So
yeah. There have to be bright spots, or else I don't know that we would do it. You know, but it is a complicated relationship. You know, in the same way that New York is a complicated. I compared New York to an abusive boyfriend. You know, it's and I think the industry is similar. You know, it's great when it's great. It's so awesome, but then it's also there are really high highs and very low lows in terms of working. You know, and also I say to students a lot, like privately, not at the conservatory hasn't come up yet, but like do this as long as you're happy doing it. As long as you're happy doing it and you have something to pour into it and you feel like it's pouring into you, continue to do it. And I can't tell you when to stop, you know. But I think that's always a looming fear that it's not going to pan out, that needed plan B. And I don't ascribe to any of that. I just say, are you happy? Are you happy doing it? Then it will work out. You will find a way. Yeah, and even if it's not Broadway, it can be something else. That's also the understanding. I think I've come to terms with that in a lot of ways of like being happy where you are right now. Because I think a lot of us are, you know, we're in the conservatory, but a lot of people are eager to get out or eager to start booking things already. But it's like be happy being in the process of learning and understanding that we're not fully baked yet. We're not done. About it. Do you hear that? Talk about it. We are not just fully, you know, formed humans yet. We're like, I'm 19. Some people are 20, whatever, in their 20s. Your brains are still developing. Yeah, it's like we're still figuring so much stuff out. So it's like just being happy, learning, and understanding that like Broadway is not it's not the only thing. Yes. Because some people get there and then they're like, what do I do now? Honestly, that's part of my story. In that, like, I achieved it. Yeah. There was like, we set it up as like, it's the pinnacle. When you get there, oh God, amazing. And then you get it. And then I was like, oh, I just keep doing this. Yeah. I just keep trying to do this over and over again. And as you said at the beginning when you were giving my bio, I do a lot of things. Yes. I'm a very curious man. Yeah. I perhaps am spread way too thin because I'm curious. I feel the same. You know? I just like when I take to something, I'm like, oh, how does that work? Yeah. I want to know more about it. You know, and I think because I'd reached the Broadway thing, I was like, oh, well, what do I do now? I don't know, especially with Come From Away being what it was, you know? Yeah. So I'm still answering that question. I'm sure there's another Broadway show in my future at some point. Yes, definitely. But I think having other challenges adjacent to it were something I discovered for myself.
Yeah,
too.
and knowing that you obviously don't have to just be an actor.
Yeah.
You can be a photographer, a writer, a producer,
Yes.
a director, like doing all these different things and just like adding to all of the skills that you have, which I think I love about like getting to do other things. Obviously I go to a conservatory, so that's like the main brunt of all of the work and things, but it's like getting chances to do things like this, or just getting to make content or write about things and experience it on the other side more. I think is more important as well, where it's like you get to understand what's happening on stage when you're obviously seeing it, and you know, we all love to watch shows, and just getting to explore all the different parts of the theater instead of just being the actor.
It makes you a three-dimensional artist.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're able to talk about the things, the other parts of theater or parts of the industry or performance or construction of it with intelligence, with experience, you know, and that's enriching. It really is.
Definitely. No, I totally agree. And just like being, again, well-rounded in all of that. And now let's talk about teaching.
Okay.
Which is obviously how I met you. I was aware of who you were because we all saw you in A Strange Loop, which was really cool. And I loved that show on Broadway and also here. I think, again, that was another experience that we probably won't get to talk about today, but it's just like another experience that I can only imagine was like really cool. Just getting to be in the room with other people who share your values probably, and just getting to be with other people that are like you is a whole other experience. I have not yet experienced that in the theater, but you know, it's something to strive for.
Yeah.
But getting to come back to Boston after being a while for a little bit, and you know, getting the job at BoCo and doing all the stuff at Speakeasy and stuff, and really like, you're booked and busy all the time. I mean, you just did Propane. You have something coming up in next year, and so coming back, like, and getting the job, like, how did you discover that you like teaching? When did that start? How did you get in contact to come back here? And just what was that whole experience like? Because I don't think I know anything about that yet.
Yeah, you asked me a question, and I tend to go back in my timeline, so promise I'm going to bounce back to the question. But if you ask, I have two younger sisters, so if you ask them, I was always meant to be a teacher because I would force them to play school. Like I would write out homework for them.
Oh my gosh.
And I didn't realize until I got the job. I was like, oh, I've taught privately for a while, but teaching on a professor level at this conservatory.
At your school.
At my school where I went, where I went to grad school, was a different foray, a different. But I was talking to my sister about it, and I was like, oh my God, wait, I was supposed to do this. I've always been a teacher.
Yeah.
So getting the master's was about teaching, and I teach, like I said, privately. I teach with this company called My College Audition.
Oh yeah, of course. Yes.
Or there's their competitor in the New York area is Musical Theater College Audition.
That's the one I did.
yes, run by my friend Leo.
Yes.
And so I was approached by them. I think in 2020 to start teaching on Zoom privately for kids who were auditioning for theater programs. And that was great because I was like, yeah, I can tap into that and do that a little bit. I've done some lecturing. I had a little bit of I do a lot of things. When I was on tour, I started a company called the Audition Workshop, where we go to different cities all the time, and I would just reach out to that city before we got there and see if there were different people that wanted to have workshops at their studio, at dance studios, at schools, community centers. So I taught there as well. And this job came along because I was up here working this year and during A Strange Loop. Was it during A Strange Loop? No, excuse me. I did a play called Case for the Existence of God at Speakeasy.
Yeah. You're just doing all of the Speakeasy
all of it.
show.
Thank you, Speakeasy. Thank you. They're going to be.
We love them.
Pretty soon they're going to be like, okay, we're set. Thank you so much, sir.
Hopefully not.
All right. But Paul Daniel, who's the artistic director there and teaches here at BoCo as well.
Oh, okay, yeah.
He is a good friend, obviously, and was like, hey, there's this job opening up at the conservatory, and I think you'd be great for it. Bevan O'Gara, who is also a teacher here, theater practitioner in town who I've known, seconded that, and my good friend Doug Lockwood, who also teaches here, which is my acting professor when I was here, also was like, hey, you should think about teaching. And so all of these people were like, hey, we really think you should do this thing. And I was kind of already doing it, and I was like, why not give it a go? I'd done a couple, like I said, lectures earlier this year, and that felt right being in a classroom. And I was like, oh, I have a lot to impart. I have a lot more to say than this 90 minutes that I've been given to talk to these students. So it all worked out. I got the gig. I was really impressed and surprised and excited. I moved here in August. And it's actually been really interesting. It's been so rewarding. Our class in particular, our little sophomore cohort, I adore you kids. I tell you this all the time.
We all adore you. We're all obsessed with you, I gotta say.
I appreciate it. It's just, I love the atmosphere we're creating in class. And I love, you've heard me say this before, when a student gets it, I have goosebumps. It's like it's happening to me. I've genuinely cried watching you all being moved by your performances, because I understand honestly what it is to toil where you're toiling and wanting to get it and trying to figure it out. And when it lands, oftentimes you have no idea it's landing. You go, oh, I didn't think it was that good. And we're all like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, no, exactly.
You know? But when it lands, and to help someone get there is so rewarding. And like I said earlier, it also makes me a better actor, because I might say something and I often go, blah, 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 blah. Does that make sense? And oftentimes I'm really appreciative to your class, because you've all started going, no. It doesn't make sense. And I'm like, okay. Because oftentimes got my wheels turning, trying to figure out what are the right words to get you toward the truth or honesty.
It's such a hard thing to teach.
Isn't
I feel like musical theater, that class in particular, because you're seeing these things for the first time while we're all seeing it, but then you have to like pick out something that could help us get it further.
Yes.
Which is so hard.
Yes.
And like, I feel like I've been trying to do that like in my own head, like while, you're doing the thing and as well, and trying to see how that's part of my brain works.
Always do that, Ashley. That's part of that's part of watching in class. Do it. Yes.
No, and just seeing like what you could do, or like how to coach people in a way that's supportive as well. And that's going to be helpful. Moving forward is so, that class, I'm like, I'm amazed, because I understand how difficult teaching that class is. And just like the fact that it works so well with us and you, and the fact that we get to spend another semester with you is so cool. Because I thought we were going to like switch halfway. I was like, don't do it.
I thought I was going to lose you guys too. Like, I feel like you,
please don't.
You are always going to hold a special place in my heart and soul. Being the first, one of my first classes, but I think just the success and everyone's commitment and the growth has really meant a lot.
It's like, we're not ready to lose you yet. And if not, obviously we would like try to, talk to you anyway.
Right.
And hopefully we'll see you as seniors as well, which is a whole other thing, which we're not going to get to, because that's going to make me go crazy. But
because it's going to be here before you know it.
Just 2 years. Oh my goodness, too much. And my dad was talking about master's programs before I even started undergrad. I was like, Dad, let me finish this first, and then I can think about
take a deep breath.
Yes, take a deep breath, and then we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
But all the craziness that comes with being in college, because it's here and then it goes before you know it. So trying to soak in all the moments that we can.
Absolutely.
But what is your philosophy, I guess, when it comes to teaching? Like, what kind of got you into it? Because I feel like you teach in a very different way than I've seen a lot of people do it. And when it comes to the things that I feel like are Delon in terms of like things that have reoccurred, and in my notes I've like started writing less, because a lot of things like come back that is I'm not hearing for the first time, and it's just like taking those things further. But like, what would you say is your philosophy when it comes to talking to young students?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, you got to meet people where they're at. There's this idea that like, I'll say this: your skill level is your skill level, and it might not be the same as another student, right? Which is why it's so valuable for everyone to sit in and watch and do what you just described. How would I change this? What's truthful? What's honest, right? So always meeting people where they're at and giving enough, as much empathy and space as I can for how you show up, right? And trying to...
We hold a lot of space in that class.
We do. And it's so important because it's very vulnerable work, right? It's vulnerable to, and the way I approach it, I told you I'm verbose, right? But the way I approach it is like, the anyone can perform. We've all done this. We've all been in shows. We all want to be performers, so we know how to do that in some sense.
Yeah.
But how do you get down to what's truthful and honest in terms of emotional and human psyche? And that requires self-assessment and self-analyzation, and it requires opening your chest. It requires a lot of vulnerability.
Yeah.
And so you have to hold space for people, but you also have to meet people where they're at. And so some people don't want to go there, don't want to open up. And so you go, okay, well, what can I say to you to get you to inch toward that more closely, and or feel safe enough to volunteer something that is precious or vulnerable to you, you know?
Yeah.
So that meeting people where they're at in that sense. But I think I mentioned truth and honesty. What feels truthful and what feels honest, that is, there's no right. There is never a right in what we do, because art is very subjective.
Yes.
Theater is very subjective. I went to see Sunset Boulevard. I had friends in it where I really enjoyed. There were parts of it that I really did not enjoy. And the friends that I was with loved those parts that I didn't enjoy and didn't like some of the performances. And I loved some of the performances, right? So it's so subjective. But I think the only thing we can strive for is what's truthful and honest, and looking at the skills that can create truth and honesty for you, right? So there is no truth is kind of there is no right. There is no right is my mantra.
Definitely.
Yeah. So I guess meet people where they're at. And there is no right. And also, like, people have a really hard time with this. I often say this in class. Be a clown. Be a clown. Don't be scared to look stupid. Don't be scared to fall on your face. Because half the time when you see someone being wacky or wild or crazy or a little bit quirky and weird, that's when we go,
yeah,
what is happening?
We're not like, oh, what is that? They're like, oh, we're interested in, like, that's really good, like, and that's cool.
It's curious or it's mysterious.
Yes.
And you want to figure it out, and that's an invitation for the audience. But I think I said this a lot. We want to be cool. We want to look great. We want to be sexy. We want to be fun. We want to be funny. And those are really powerful things. Those are powerful positions to be in. But the vulnerable thing, the more interesting thing, is to fall on your face.
Yeah. That's true. No, I actually talking to the person who also went to Michigan 2 days ago. He said, like, the thing he took from Michigan was, like, make the strongest choice in one direction, whether that's quote unquote right or not. Just, like, make your choice, and then if that's not it, you can dial back and choose another avenue. But just, like, make the choices strong, so that it's not so, like, surface level and vague. You want to make it so specific that it's just like they can see exactly what you're seeing at that point.
Well, and even if it's bold and wrong, or quote unquote wrong, that's information. Yeah. You go, oh, well, that didn't work, so let me try something else, right? Yeah. But the boldness is also, like, we don't come to the theater to see casual. You know, like we have 2.5 hours, like 90 minutes, right? Make it 90 minutes. But we have 2.5 hours within one intermission. To see the extent of human experience, the extent of human emotion and three-dimensionality therein. Give it to us boldly and fiercely, because we don't, again, I can get casual at home cooking dinner. Yeah, you know what I mean? Yes. So the idea that you want to look cool and look cool, I guess, I'll stop there, is great, but that's more about you and not about them. The audience is coming to see themselves reflected in their human emotion and what they can't be. They want to see what they relate to something, but they also want to see something that they can't relate to that I think forces them to stretch and pulls them more pulls them, I'll say.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I think for all of us, especially being in college, stop trying to be cool, because it's fine if you're a nerd, because we're all nerds.
We're theater nerds. We're theater
it's dorks. Like, there's no way to be cool at this point anymore, because it's just like the thing we do is so goofy half the time. Absolutely. So it's like just owning that part, I think, is the most important part. Yeah. And what is your favorite part of being a teacher?
Gosh, when you all get it, man. when you get it. I swear to you, it feels like it's happening to me. You know, and it's because it's like I'm trying to describe the thing to you, and then lying there is a great example. Like, you know, I gave you the song and you performed it beautifully, but it got richer and richer and richer every time. And I would give you a couple things here and there, but it's yours, right? Mm-hmm. It's your performance, and I was like, here, try this, and you waded in the water and figured out how it worked on Ashley, and then really had so much truth and so much groundedness to the performance, and I was like, oh, I feel like I did it. You know? And I did this much of it. I did very little. You did the bulk of it, right? But I was there to aid you and pat you on the back and like wind behind your sails and keep going.
Or just bring the things that I wasn't thinking about to the surface, because you can always, I mean, it's the whole thing of like you see the speck in other people's eye, but you don't see the log in your own eye. Where it's like being able to watch someone else, you see all the things that you don't see when you're the one performing.
Yes.
And so getting that feedback is always so valuable, because it's like, oh, it's the thing I wasn't thinking about yet. That will make it so much richer. And so,
can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
In the context of learning in class.
Yeah.
When you don't get a lot of feedback from after a performance, how does that make you feel?
When I don't get a lot of feedback.
Like if you do a thing and I'm like, okay, good, think about this next time, moving on. Right?
Oh, okay.
Does that make you feel like, oh, I didn't do it well, or I need more, or I did do it well, and so I don't need any more feedback?
I think I maybe felt that the most with the classical unit, maybe.
Okay.
I think that was the one I got maybe the least notes on, or I didn't quite feel like I got it by the end.
Okay.
But I think I just kind of felt like, okay, what can I do to like try and bring this further? Wasn't like obviously, oh, I did such a good job that I didn't need anything. Like that was definitely not it. But I think it's just being like, oh, okay, maybe this isn't working, and that's okay too. I think I felt like, see what I want to see. It was like, this is whack, and I'm like, what am I doing? But like, you know, just trying it out. And I did get feedback on that one too, but it's just like, I think less because we didn't have enough time. But it's kind of sometimes understanding like, oh, maybe this just isn't like gonna work maybe to the, like what other things might. That doesn't make any sense in the way that I said it, but I guess it's just like understanding that sometimes it doesn't work to the fullest, and will be a lot of more roadblocks than maybe for me singing higher. That's like a song I can sing all the time, and that's very comfortable for me. But when you get songs that are challenging, and then maybe you don't quite get it by the end, it's like, oh, okay, what can I do to, like going forward, I'm not just going to drop it and only go in my lane. It's like figuring out how to embody things that are uncomfortable.
Yes.
And things, like again, we said that earlier, but just figuring out still those little nitpicking things. And I think when I don't get feedback as much, I think it's just kind of like, okay, let me go back and think about what else there is to do to keep pushing it further. Or maybe it's just that performance was just so like kind of monotone, like maybe it just didn't go where it needed to be, and that's not something that you can do about it either. It's definitely something I can do, and I think anyone can do anything with any song. Whether or not it's like, oh my God, or not, or it's just like, oh, that was a good song. Because that's how some songs are. I feel like that's not every song is going to hit you as hard as Lying There or Higher or whatever. It's like, there are some things that are just like those little, they're not quite as indulgent in the emotion maybe as some other ones. It's like, there's a middle ground that sometimes needs to move a story along or something, where not every song is going to be the hit single from that show. Right. And so I think that was maybe what I took from it. I don't know. That was a very long-winded answer, and I don't think I quite have a clear idea of maybe how that made me feel either. Yeah. But I think that's a little bit of it.
Yeah, I asked, and I think you're working out in real time, so I receive everything you said. Yeah. I asked that because I think this being my first semester here, and also like moving forward and thinking about how I want to approach giving feedback, I do think that sometimes either when you get too much feedback, and I experienced this as a student as well, and professionally too, when you get too much feedback, you feel like, I'm not doing it right, oh my goodness. Yeah. And when you don't get any feedback, you're like, I'm not doing it right, oh my goodness. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so it is, to pull a thread you said, the onus is completely on you to understand that the feedback is what it is, and just go back and do the work. But I also do want to give voice to that. And you'll probably hear me say this again when we start in the spring, because I do want to get voice to that, because I think it's important and to understand that, like, it doesn't mean any of it's bad. It's all good.
Yeah.
It's all good, you know?
No, I think we all understand that too. It's like, we're doing good work. It's just, how can we make it even better?
Yeah.
And sometimes that just takes time, and sometimes it just doesn't work. And that's okay too.
Yes.
Like, 'cause it's just understanding that not every single time you perform is going to be like hit everyone in the heart and like make everybody cry. It's like, that will happen occasionally. Maybe if something like really works for you, not saying that you can't do anything and everything, but sometimes things don't always have, like, it just doesn't have that effect on people the same way, because it's just, maybe the song is not that vulnerable sometimes. And like, that's just a thing I think I had to reckon with too, because like the first 2 things I did in the class were like, I was like, oh yeah, this is like really good and fitting. I was like, yes, I'm doing it. We're back sophomore year, whatever. And then the last 2, I was kind of like, these are a lot more challenging to figure out, because I think See What I Want to See was just like kind of quirky and weird for me. And I was like, because it was also so vague and the story was confusing, I was like, okay, let me just figure out what a version of this could be. And then like with my last one, I was like, this one, like, it feels like it goes somewhere, but not quite. And so I'm like, that was another trouble, I think, of just like figuring out, again, if I didn't get feedback, being like, it doesn't mean it was super bad. Maybe it was good, but it wasn't like out of this world incredible. And it doesn't have to be. I was like, I can still just like do a good job as much as I can, especially with everything else going on in life, like that we always have. And just being like, that might just be what it is, and that's okay.
I also want to say, reflecting back to See What I Want to See, because of the work you had done prior, the reason I assigned you that song, that unit was challenging in and of itself, but I assigned you that song because I knew you could do it. And I was like, well, the work you did before told me something specific, and I was like, oh yeah, let's do this. And you chose your last song, or I aided therein, right? Right.
I was like, I don't know any other songs right now, let me just do this one.
But like, I trust your work, and I trust your emotional intelligence and your intellectual intelligence. That's repetitive.
We coined the term, it's okay.
Right. So that's also part of that too. Understand that. Just as your teacher, I want to give that to you.
Thank you. No, and I think it's just understanding how we can always grow as people and get out of our comfort zones. That's what we have to do all the time. And I think having the class this year has made me so much more comfortable with performing.
Good.
Because we have to do it almost every week. I only didn't do it 1 week because I had bronchitis, but every other time we're just getting up there constantly and having to put our hearts out in front of our classmates, where I don't think any other profession does this, of course. And so that made me more confident when I did auditions. I am definitely not as like panic attacky as I used to be when it comes to all that stuff, because I'm like, oh, I can trust myself now because I've had the reps. I've also never played a lead in a musical before, like ever. And so like, I don't know what it's like to carry a show for 2.5 hours or like be on a stage for, and do a solo, whatever, except for just like a recital. That's like my only real experience in doing like little ensemble parts in shows. But it's like getting those reps in of just being me and just having to perform maybe a 32-bar cut in an audition, or do this and just having the room to fully get comfortable with that finally, because that's something that I wanted so bad last year, I think, and I didn't have that. And so like every time before an audition, I'm like, oh my god, I'm so stressed out. What am I gonna do? What am I singing? Like, is my voice there? Like, all the checks. Where it's like this year, I think that's all been like kind of chilled out in me, and like where my recital, I had more fun and like things like that, and it's just having the reps to get comfortable with that. Not to the point where it's like I don't care anymore, but being so that I can have more fun in the work, and doing that has been so important. And I think that's like what this year has been for so many of us, is getting to do the thing we love most. Because most of the people in my cohort, I think, are like singer first. I think they would consider themselves singers first. I would, and so it's like we finally get to do the thing that we've wanted to do forever, and like having the space in the room to do that is so much fun. And like I think we all love your class so much, not only because you are an incredible teacher, but it's because that's like all of our favorite things. And so it's like, it's just so many good things all built into one. Where it's like now we're able to be fully and entirely like doing the thing that we've all wanted to do here for so long.
Oh, I'm so happy to hear that. I'm so happy to hear that. I'm also happy to hear that, like, some of your feeling around auditioning is, was your anxiety, I guess, was like, I don't know, dampened? Tampened's not a word, dampened. Partially because it never goes away.
Yes.
You know, even professionally, when I have a live audition, I'm always like, okay. I literally like anthropomorphize my anxiety and like talk to it. And I'm like, hey, I understand you have a purpose, but we're not fight or flight.
Yeah.
Come on in. We'll be okay. We've done it before 1,000,000 times.
Yeah.
And just let's have a good time, you know?
Yeah. No, it's like those reminders. And it's also the other thing that I love to think about all the time is like, if it's not there, that means you don't care anymore.
Yeah.
And so if I ever get to that point, it'd be like, oh, maybe I shouldn't be doing this anymore. But it's like to know that it's always going to be there probably because I do love this so much. And just taking it and harnessing it in a new way where I don't want it to be over before I'm doing it in that sense. And enjoying the feeling of being, you know, singing and performing in front of other people. I might still be nervous and my legs might still be shaking, but, you know, it's like I can enjoy the moment more. And
the leg shaking will go away, I promise.
I hope. I know, it happened the other week and I was like, shoot. But it's like just knowing that, oh, okay, I can do this. And you know, the anxiety, you take it in and you accept it. And then you move on. And then after the audition, after the performance or whatever, you move on.
Yep.
And then you do another one sometime
because there will be another one.
Yes. And just, I love that we've had the ability to get so comfortable with it because it's important to get those, you know, get the practice in. And so what is your advice for people who are just starting out, who maybe aren't as in practice as other people? Maybe they're like us. We started a little later than some people do with theater.
Right.
And so what is your advice to those people who are just like, I want to do this, but I don't really get it yet?
Yeah, the thing that I really am grateful for in my makeup as a human is my curiosity. And I think that serves us so well, not only again as humans, but as actors and as artists. You have to be curious. You have to be curious enough to, even when you don't have the part, when you have an audition, you go, okay, great. The only thing I have is this song that my agent representative gave me, or BoCo gave me, this 32-bar cut that I'm supposed to sing, and this scene. How can I make this interesting? What is happening in the text? You have to be curious enough. You can't only want it. You can't only want to get the part, because that's only a part of the work.
Yeah.
The work is actually the digging, the excavation of the character and again, the text. So curiosity, and I find across the board, younger performers, younger actors tend to want it. They want you ate that. They want the accolades, they want the validation, they want the affirmation, they want their name on a cast list, they want an announcement, and that's all good and well. But that has a lot to do with ego, and you have to have ego to do this.
Yes.
I'm not chastising that. Have that ego, because
but it's like, after the announcement comes out, you have to go do the thing.
Then you gotta deliver. Then people are coming to see you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you're also going to be in a room, I think, especially professionally, you're going to be in a room with other artists who you have to not only work with, but you have to bring a wealth of things to create the story with. A director is going to expect you to come with a wealth of ideas. And if you're sitting there going, I don't know, tell me what to do, what do I do? Then that's not helpful to you, to the production, to anything.
Yes.
But if you have a curiosity around it, if you're willing to do some kind of digging, not willing, you need to, but if you are able to do that, that will serve you so well. I always say too, when I'm asked a question about like what suggestions would you give younger people, I love taking classes. I'm a lifetime learner, and that's part of curiosity too. Have something else that you do. Podcasting, photography, writing. Have something else that you do outside. It can be adjacent, but outside of the performance, of the performing and the acting and then singing, dancing, whatever it is, that fills up your cup, so that when the avocation, which becomes a vocation, when the hobby that becomes the career is no longer serving you or not serving you at the moment, you can go, okay.
You can go to something else.
You can go to something else and have your artistic cup filled up.
Yes, that's why I do this,
yes.
obviously. And it's important for everyone to know that. I think I've learned the past year that theater does not have to be everything.
Ooh, say it louder,
Definitely
Ashley.
not.
Mm-hmm.
It cannot be your life, because if it is your life, then what else do you have?
Yes.
And you have to live a full life before you can portray it. I say that all the time now. And it's just like, you have to know how to be a human being before you can even try to portray humanity on stage. Because like, if we don't have just our own life experiences, then what are we going to pull from?
Yes.
Not saying that you have to apply everything in your life to what's going on and take care of yourself, but it's like, if you don't have life experience, what are you going to do? Like,
I'm literally going to have you say this the first day of class.
Okay.
If I don't, remind me.
Okay.
But I'm going to go home and write it down.
Yeah.
Because I could say that to a student and it would land differently. Coming from one of their contemporaries who understands that, I think it matters so much. It's so significant.
Yeah, and it's just about being true to who you are and not, exploring life and doing that, but also like just being yourself. Like I am a very introverted person.
I see you.
Where I like to, spend time at my apartment
Me
and
too.
hang out and like do my work, and then, I go to classes, but I don't go too crazy. Just like to wander around Boston. But it's like doing all those things too that bring you joy, and making sure that you're okay just being by yourself sometimes. Like go and take the light died, it's okay. But just knowing that like, you're okay with yourself first before you can, put your love onto other people too.
Yeah.
And just like knowing who you are as a person is, I think, the most important thing that I'm still trying to figure out. I think I figured out a lot, but there's still a long way to go.
Yeah, and that's not an easy journey.
No.
As somebody who is still figuring it out as well. I just had therapy this morning,
Yes.
ready?
Yes.
And therapy has allowed me to discover a lot about me.
Yeah.
But also time and experience,
Yeah, no, it's like it'll all come eventually. You just have to trust.
Yes.
And so what is your passion that has nothing to do with theater, and maybe not even with like art in general? Like just what's something you like to do that's just kind of random? Like I love food.
Really? You're a foodie.
I'm a huge foodie. Mostly I eat a lot of Asian food because that's like my...
What's your favorite type of Asian food?
I love Japanese food.
Really?
Like, because I love Chinese and Taiwanese food. I'm Taiwanese, so obviously that's like what I grew up with. But there are times where I'm like, I'm not in the mood for that. But like I could eat sushi probably any day ever. I literally had it like 2 days ago in New York. I was like, let's go get some Japanese food. I'm like, please. And I go all the time here. Like, take myself on a little solo date, go get a lunch special. Like,
you better. Wait, what is your Japanese spot on the hood?
It's called Sakabayashi Sushi Tavern. It's on Boylston. I can show you it later. And they have great lunch deals.
A lunch
This
special.
is an ad for them now.
Yeah.
I go all the time. I think they recognize me now.
Amazing.
But so what is your like thing that you just love that is maybe not related to this at all?
Yeah. It's not random, but I love traveling. I love traveling. My best friend and podcast co-host, we've joked over the years. We've been friends for like 20 some odd years, and I was like I've been obsessed with Spanish for a long time, and Spain. And leading up to my 30th birthday, I was like, I'm going to Spain. And she was like, if you talk about Spain one more damn time, if you just don't go. But I'm obsessed with Spain, and I've traveled alone a lot. And I'm trying to do that a little bit less, just because the reason I travel alone is because I just don't want to think about what you want to do.
Yeah. No, I understand.
I just want to buy a plane ticket and just go.
Yeah.
And I might probably do that at some point in the new year.
No, go for it.
Highway, the credit card miles are significant. The reason I like it, and I've discovered over the years, is that there are incremental challenges that happen when you travel alone, especially when you travel to a place where you don't speak the language. Or like I speak Spanish, but I don't speak it fluently. I'm going to say con fluidez. I don't speak it fluently yet. And so I can get around, but I've been to Portugal, I've been to Germany, and when you don't speak the language, you're like, how am I going to do this? How am I going to
I did that in Taiwan this summer.
Wow.
Just for...
Because you took classes too, right?
I did. I was doing study abroad there. But like my mom came with me for like a week, and my ama and my cousin. And then I was by myself. I had other friends and stuff, my roommates and other friends that I made. But you're in a place where you speak the language,
Wow.
and you have to figure it out. And
Right.
I did not know like anything before going. I
Really?
probably should have
You
taken
didn't even take a Duolingo, Ashley?
No.
Oh my gosh.
Not at all. I mean, I probably did at some point, but like I couldn't read a single Chinese character. I would not have been able to know anything. And so I just went with the faith that hoping like the immersion would help, and it did. And it's like I'm still really bad, but like it gave me the boldness to just I could go around and do whatever I wanted to, like whenever I wanted, and just like again, you said like I think. Also, the biggest thing that I've been talking about ever since I went to Taiwan was how much empathy you gain when you travel.
Yes.
I was like, going to bring that up because I'm sure that's something you understand as well.
100%.
Where it's like when you don't speak the language and you're on the other side of so many people feel in America.
Yes.
You finally have the understanding of what it's like to do that. Mm-hmm. And then you come back and you know, I guess, like you just know what it's like to be the person who's maybe the odd one out, whereas like other people, they're the ones who know.
Right.
And then you come back and you can have more empathy towards them if someone doesn't speak English or someone doesn't, is a little confused, just needs help. Like we all have the empathy now to, just want to help them out instead of just being like, no, I can't talk to you because you don't speak my language. Like that's the thing, and come from away.
Right,
like,
right.
Like you don't speak our language. Like in figuring out how we can bridge those gaps between languages and figuring that out.
Yeah.
And so,
well, and also we have such a massive country here that I think we forget that most countries are a portion of our size, right? Like that's arguable. That's my brain was like, well, that's not true. But it depends. But I will say like because a lot of us don't leave here and don't have that experience, or we go and like it might be a cruise and we're in Honduras on a stopover, you know what I mean? Versus like immersing yourself in Taiwan where you don't speak the language. But it also reminds me every time I do it that the world is vast, but there's so much more to learn. I mean, I've been to Tokyo. Like you were saying, you love Asian food.
I love Japan. I've been there once, and I loved it so much.
I went once with Jersey Boys.
Yeah.
And I had never ever thought that I was gonna go because I want to go to all the Spanish-speaking countries, but we went there for work, and I was like, why would I not want to come here? It was so many cultural things that were so interesting to me, that they were so kind, so generous. The fruit. There was an apple the size of my head.
Yes, the Asian fruits are amazing.
They're enormous. and just like I would have never, my mind was expanded and I was like, I want to go everywhere and anywhere. I don't know why I'd never had it on my radar. It's not that I had an aversion to it. I just never thought of it.
Oh, definitely.
But to your point, I want to go back. Kyoto is
so beautiful.
Amazing.
Yes.
So it expands your it expanded my viewpoint, I guess. And my mom, the random thought, my mom was like, you eat raw fish? You eat it raw? And I'm like, yeah, Mom, it's actually like really good. Yes. It's actually like banging, you know?
It's like maybe better than cooked fish.
Probably.
Maybe to me, at least.
Probably. So travel, it expands. And actually, now that we're thinking about that, I'm probably going to go home and plan my spring break.
Yes,
and go somewhere.
do it.
Yeah.
No, I don't know what I'm doing, but I want to go somewhere too. Was talking to my friends that I met over the summer. We're like, we should go to Japan. Because we didn't get to go during our summer because it was too much going on. But it's like wanting to just go and experience other places is so much fun. And again, gaining that empathy. And also saying, this is connecting it back to theater. But I saw a musical when I was in Taiwan. Mm-hmm. It was starring Telly Leung, of all people.
Telly,
yes.
Who's really good friends with Leo.
Yes,
Leo's
they're
besties,
yes. And so I saw it with him in it, and there was there's a couple American people in it, but a lot of Taiwanese people as well. There was like one white person in the whole cast.
You're welcome. You're welcome, white person.
But it was a bilingual show where there was English and Mandarin. Wow. And they had subtitles at the top in both.
Wow.
And I was like,
so smart.
This is what it should be.
Yes.
And whereas Broadway is so English-based and not really geared toward anyone who doesn't speak English.
Yes.
I heard like some German people the other day after I saw Hell's Kitchen, they were like speaking at the stage door, and I was like, okay, yeah, go for it. And they were like, yeah, we maybe did. They were telling the people in the cast, they're like, yeah, we maybe didn't understand everything because of the German thing, but like really good. Like they still loved it.
Yeah.
And I was like, after seeing that show in Taiwan, I'm like, let's do that more. Let's have more integration of different cultures. And also like, at that point, I could understand everything, and so could all the people who maybe didn't speak English as well as me.
Yeah.
Like Telly learned like a lot of Mandarin stuff for the show. He doesn't speak Chinese.
Wow.
And so he like had to learn that for a show, and like again, that gains more empathy.
Yeah.
And, like,
I think that's so cool.
There's so much theater outside of here, of course. New York is not it completely. And like Korea is incredible with theater.
Yeah.
And like, you know, one of my friends, Shin, he's a senior. He's there right now, and he's seen so many shows there. And it's like expanding the knowledge. Like I think again, like traveling does so much for that, where it's like you get to see so much.
Yeah.
And just get to experience more.
And outside of your comfort zone, you know, traveling alone. I'm an introvert, very similar to you, despite my, you know,
we can
yes.
do it when we need to.
but it takes energy,
yes,
right?
It takes a lot.
It takes energy. But traveling alone pushes me outside of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
I have to talk to people because after I've gone to my museums and I've seen my sites, by the third day I just want a person there, you know, of my 7-day trip, and so I'm forced to make friends, you know, which is good for me because I don't readily do that. I'm like, oh, don't talk to me.
No, it's like have your boundaries, but also it's like you know, there's so many people out there and that, you know, someone that we're maybe meant to meet.
Yes, exactly,
so
exactly.
It's like just taking those experiences when they come, and like that's so fun. I haven't done too much solo traveling before, but it's like it's a goal that I hopefully can achieve someday. It's like it's so rough. I went to New York completely by myself.
Yes.
That was the first time I actually gone like completely by myself.
Okay.
And that was the whole thing. Chaotic at times because I fit too much stuff in 2 days, but it's okay. It's like it's just learning those things about yourself. Sometimes just being like, "Mom, I need help."
Yeah.
It's just like knowing your limits to it, and just knowing what it's like to just navigate a world by yourself is so valuable. I think it's like my favorite thing ever.
Humbling.
Yes, definitely. And so travel, I love that.
Yeah.
And you know,
good
to have other things to fulfill you.
You have to.
Yeah.
And I don't know how I'm gonna do it, but I like. Actually, I've been doing it.
Yeah.
Every year, I've been going to another country. It's often Mexico.
Which is fun, and you get to practice your language skills.
Exactly.
You know, it's just something else that is not just theater.
A change of pace.
Yeah, no, definitely. And what do you think your younger self would say to you if he saw you now?
Oh, wow, that's so good. That's so good. Don't get me crying, Ashley. What would my younger self? I think he would be in awe. I think he would be really surprised. I was a really depressed kid. And still suffer with depression and therapy, medication, all the things. But at some point, I think when you're stuck under that kind of umbrella of depression, it's hard to see the future. It's hard to see hope. It's hard to see beyond the circumstance. So I think that he would be in awe. What would he say to me, or what would he think about it? Yay comes to mind. I often do think about him and kind of where I've come and who I am now as a man compared, and I did not see any of this happening for me. How can you, right?
Yeah. I didn't see anything like this happening for me.
I kind of gone where the wind's blown and like poured into what I felt was right and interesting, and but I don't often think about what he would think about me, but I do think that he would be in awe, which is, thank you for that gift, because now that I'm thinking about it, I am him, and I should also be in awe. You know, I think we get stuck in the kind of not only minutia of the day-to-day, but the what's next. That's why New York kind of is the way my blood pumps. I'm like, okay, let's go.
No, I relate, yes.
You know, and it's really important to stop, you know, and reflect, and I don't do that very often, and sit in my own in reflection of what I've accomplished and who I am.
Yes, because you have accomplished so much. I mean, clearly your bio was freaking like so long. I was like looking at your website. I'm like, oh, okay, what? Well, I'm like, what do I include? What do I not include? Because there was more than I even wrote in there. I was like, it's so just like a life, like it summed up into some words. It's like it's just to look back on that and just understand like. Yeah, I've come pretty far, and like we're going somewhere, and we don't know where the end goal is, but there is no end goal.
Right.
And once there is no point to reach, because there's always going to be more that you have to live. And so until obviously that final day, like it's just like you're always just going to have to keep going.
Yeah.
And whether you're on Broadway or you're teaching here or you're just doing shows anywhere, or you're traveling, it's like you just have to figure out a way. Well, to quote The Notebook, how you want to spend like your days, my days, like, figure that out, because it's like you have to treasure them, because it's, life is so fragile at times that like we just have to enjoy it. And I think the fact that we are pursuing something that we're passionate about, not everyone gets to do that either. And so to really just be grateful, and that is so important.
It's so true. It's so, yeah, I mean, not to poo-poo, we call them, or I call them muggles, people who have normal 9-to-5 kind of jobs and careers. I'm sure some of them really do have passions for what they do, but the vast majority of us are just told that we have to find jobs. And hopefully it's something you're passionate about. Hopefully it's something you're really good at. But not everybody has the same experience that we do, despite how difficult and challenging it can be. It is rewarding, and it's a gift in that sense,
Yeah, and, I love that. And just to wrap it up, like, can you talk about what you have coming up? And how we can continue to support you?
Yes.
I didn't name the show earlier because I wanted you to talk about it.
I appreciate it. So I'm rehearsing for a show called Ain't No Mo, which was on Broadway in 2022. Thank you.
Because I was right there when it was going.
I saw it 3 times on Broadway. Another alum, Marchant Davis, was on Broadway. We were at BoCo at the same time.
Oh, okay.
And I'm playing the part he played on Broadway.
Oh my gosh, so special.
Yeah. So that opens the new year. Ain't No Mo at Speakeasy Stage Company. It's a co-pro between Speakeasy Stage Company and the Front Porch Arts Collective. And then in the spring, I'm doing Midsummer Night's Dream with Actor Shakespeare Project. And that's all I have on the docket there. I have a podcast, which I meant to Lemme Fix It.
Yes, of course.
And I'm doing some of my own writing. So I'm trying to finish writing a show, but because I like music and songs, and I really don't play anything and it's just on it being a musical, that it's taking me a little bit longer, but hopefully I'll have like a reading or a workshop in the new year. So.
Yes, no, that would be so cool. And obviously, all the things you're doing is so exciting. Ain't No Mo, and obviously Midsummer Night's Dream, like, you're always booked, it seems like. I mean,
thank you. As coming back up here, it's been really fruitful.
So it is like to get to do, especially all these shows that I feel like are so fulfilling, like A Strange Loop. I remember going down the spiral of like analyzing that show so much, and for you to be able to be a part of that, of course, is incredible. I interviewed the original. I forgot which number it is, but whichever one you played, I interviewed Jason Veazey before.
Oh, Jason Veazey.
Yes, and just talking about
on
like
your podcast, I just said that.
Hi, Jason. But it's like getting to see so many different people play different parts is so cool as well.
Yeah.
And then with Propane, I didn't know anything about that, and widening my play knowledge. And then for Ain't No Mo to be coming here, it's like all these things that we saw on Broadway are now being like plucked back in, everything that Speakeasy and was it Front Porch?
The Front Porch.
Yes. I was like, I don't want to get the order of the words wrong, but just seeing like all the work they're doing is so incredible, and so I can't wait to see you in all the things in the new year. And just to wrap it up, thank you to everyone who will listen to this. It's been such a pleasure having you on, Delana.
Thank you for having me.
The best getting to know you more personally. And then we'll return to the work in January.
We will. It never ends.
We will come back to it and hit the grind once again, and we'll all be there to experience it. So thanks so much for being on.
You're so welcome.
Hope you all have an amazing day. Bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to Broadway Corner with Ashley Haw. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll see you next time.